Good morning, everyone. So when we sat down and thought about a panel of marketers that could provide some tips for the local businesses downtown, we thought about the fact that it's going to be another holiday year with it not being normal per se. And what are some things that we could do based on our specialty areas, some tips that we could give you. So that's kind of where we're at today. We're each going to give our tips, and then at the end, if you have any questions, and if we have time, Kathleen, we'll be able to answer them, but we'll all stick around for a little bit afterward and be able to answer any questions that you have. Or you could get our emails if we have some resources that we can email to you based on what we talk about today. So I'm going to begin. My business is NameSpark. We are a social media marketing firm here in Lancaster. We work with a lot of different local companies and regional companies. We provide social media marketing services in terms of like creating content for your Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter accounts. But we also do social media advertising and offer those services as well. The one project that probably everybody in this room is aware of that we've most recently been involved with, along with Infantree, who we teamed up with, was the Recovery Lancaster project, where we provided all the social media marketing and the social media advertising for that initiative throughout the entire COVID period. So I'm just going to jump in. The first tip that I have is the algorithms that they have on social media today are making it hard for any small business to get any kind of reach with your content. It's really become a pay-to-play world. So I would recommend that each of you consider running social media advertising this holiday season to promote your business. By a show of hands, is there anybody in the room who last holiday season ran social ads or this year is planning on running some social ads? Okay, there's a few. Okay. Some of the things you can do with the social media ads is you can promote your store. That could be your bricks and mortar store or your online store. You could promote events that you have coming up. That could be individual events that you're doing at your store or at your restaurant. Or it could be some of the events that we talked about earlier, like Small Business Saturday, to kind of drum up some additional foot traffic to your business. You can also promote individual categories or products that you have with the social media ads. And another thing that I wanted to mention is you could target just Lancaster County to try to pull some more of those shoppers from outside of the city who may not typically come into the city and shop. You could pull those with the social media ads. It's a great way to do that. And it's actually really affordable. And if you guys want some more information, I can't get into too much detail today because of time limitations. But if you want some more information about what that might cost, feel free to reach out to me. Another thing that you want to do if you consider social media ads is upload your customer list. You could target those customers with just the ads, with social media ads. You can also create a lookalike audience inside of Facebook where you could target people in the same area who are similar to your customers. So the lowest hanging fruit, you can create ads to target them. The second tip I have is take advantage of social shopping features. So social media nowadays has really stepped up, especially Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, enabling shopping on their actual platforms. There's a great resource that Facebook and Instagram has to get you started on how to use this. You can actually, within the Instagram posts and Facebook, you can link to your website for those products that you're featuring in the posts. But they actually do have a checkout feature too, where you can use those, where they can literally shop right within the platform. And I will tell you, I myself as a consumer, I have spent a fair amount of dollars over the last 2 years on Instagram, like ads that I see on Instagram and also Instagram shopping. I just bought a pair of sneakers directly from Instagram about 2 weeks ago using the shopping feature. So people are using it. More and more people are purchasing directly from social media platforms, and a lot of these tools that are available, they are free. It just requires you to sit down and figure out how to set them up, and then maybe have some technical assistance as well in setting them up and having them available. It's really, I like to say, we're leveling the playing field. In the past, the big brands, they've always got the advantage. They've always been the But nowadays with things like social shopping, you definitely have a better opportunity as a small local business to get your products out there. And even restaurants for that matter, like being able to run a simple social media ad campaign each week promoting your daily specials. You could literally spend $50 to $100 and really reach a lot of people with that and increase the foot traffic into your bricks and mortar store. The last tip I have, this one is maybe a little bit more complicated, maybe something you want to think about more towards next holiday season, but it's definitely something to consider, including local influencers in your social media holiday campaign strategy. And when I talk about influencers, I know that word brings up a lot of confusion. So the easiest way to explain it is people who are on social media, who have a decent following, who people enjoy engaging with their content, that could be commenting on it, liking it, sharing it, and also finding out what they enjoy and maybe some of the things that they're purchasing. For instance, there might be a woman in Ephrata who loves flowers, and she does a lot of posts about flowers. So a local florist might be interested in reaching out to her and having her create some content around the things around the florist shop, and then sharing that, and then they can tag your business in those posts. The first thing that you have to do in that particular case is identifying local influencers. That's not always an easy task. That can take some time. It can also just be scouring through Instagram to see what people are using certain hashtags that are relevant to your industry, and that's a whole nother thing that we can get into, but I don't have time to today. But then, like I said, if you could even host events and invite local influencers to those events and get people, more people on the web talking about your particular business or your bricks and mortar. It's a great way to increase the footprint without actually having to advertise. Like the influencers can take your name and take it to another level, especially in the local area. It is much easier using influencers in local areas than national. And the other thing that I wanted to mention about influencers, I think when a lot of people think about influencers, they think, oh, well, that's got to be a celebrity or that's got to be somebody famous. That's not the case at all. Influencers can be just somebody like you or I who is very active on social media and has a really good following, and a lot of people like to pay attention to what they're talking about, so therefore your business can take advantage of that. So that's all I have as far as tips. Like I said, if you guys have any questions about anything that I mentioned, feel free to reach out to me after we're done. Take it away, Ryan.
Thanks, Kris. Mm-hmm. Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan Martin. As I mentioned earlier, I'm one of the co-founders of Infantree, which is a strategic branding agency here in Lancaster, and as well as the co-owner of Ellicott & Company, a local retail boutique just across the street. So we opened that in 2016. And we talk about it a lot, that Ellicott was our opportunity to put our money where our mouth is, be our own client, and actually live out some of the projects and processes that we talk to clients about on a regular basis. So when Kris asked me to be part of this panel and give tactics and tips for the holiday season, it's both very personal to the business that we run on that side, but also extremely challenging because we believe that branding is something that you don't sprinkle on top. It's not something that you add in later. It's something that's really baked in from the very beginning. So today, I'm hopefully reminding us of some key principles for why we got into business in the first place, and remind us how we can kind of live some of those out in our business this holiday season. One of the big things we talk about within branding is there's a lot of different definitions around what branding is, and so I'm going to really try to keep it super simple for the time that we have, and focus on the word differentiation and consistency. So differentiation is really the key to building a brand. It's how are you different? What is it that you do that no one else is doing? I use the example a lot of times. If you're the only coffee shop in town, you can sell and get away with really garbage coffee. Your Wi-Fi doesn't have to work, your lighting doesn't have to be, set just to the right tonality. But when there's 6, 8, 10 coffee shops in the same block, differentiation becomes very key. And so differentiation brings about people with different leanings. Tribe building we talk about a lot. So differentiation is really to remember, why did we get into this business in the first place? What is our unique spot? Who do we speak to? and how do we stand out. Ultimately, it's really why do you matter? And so remembering that through this process. The other thing is consistency. Once we start doing something, just because the trend shifts and changes, or somebody else brought in a product that you would also like to carry, and you constantly are chasing those things, consistency becomes challenging. It becomes one of those things where, well, they're doing it, and maybe I should do it also. So a lot of time what we say is figure out what you do better than anyone else and really stick to it. Don't constantly change and move around to see if, maybe I can take off this segment. The consistency of Starbucks, staying in that coffee shop line, whether you like Starbucks or you hate Starbucks, there is a consistent experience, whether it's in downtown Lancaster or in a retail location in Nevada. There is a level of consistency between colors, smells, experience. All those things are consistent. Maybe that isn't in your own retail business. It's the candle that you burn constantly, that aroma comes up. It can be that thing that triggers people in mind. And so if you think about it from a restaurant perspective, if you have an amazing meal once, and you bring your friends and family to that same restaurant expecting the exact same experience and don't get that, very rarely do you come back for a third time. Because that level of consistency is something that you're banking your reputation and thoughts on. So differentiation and consistency, those really go hand in hand for building up a brand. And so that idea of knowing what sets you apart is really key. And then building your fan base is essential. So Kris already mentioned it as far as your customer list, importing those things. But we look at it a lot of times as tribe building from the standpoint of where are those loyal fans, where are those people that kind of love everything that you do, who tell you it, who are recurring shoppers. How do we find ways to engage them? I use a lot of analogies, and so that just tends to be my communication style. But if you look at a sports team, I'm a football fan. If you look at sports team and you look at the fan base, they have a common language. They have a common color scheme. They have a common fight song. There's a lot of these things that make them bind together and find ways of communication that is uniquely their own, I will say. And so looking at your brand this season, what are those ways you can bring those people together around that common idea? What's your tailgate party? What does it look like to engage your audience from that perspective of this is what we all share in common? So looking at your individual businesses through that perspective of building that fan base and allowing them to be your brand ambassadors. Sometimes we think we got to sell them something, we got to sell them something, we got to sell them something. That's true. You need that in order to be able to exist and not just be a hobby. But at the same point, what is it that is going to be more important than the product you sold is the fact that there is a level of belonging to something. And so thinking about that from the context of the business that you're in. And the next thing would be promote a personality and not a product. We think that oftentimes if we just show the product that we have on social media, that'll get people interested. I can tell you from personal experience from our business, every time I show a new piece of apparel that came in, a new shirt, we get a few likes. We get people that are engaged in it. We show the maker who's behind it. We tell the story. We explain the why we're doing something, or promote actually even a new display piece we brought into the shop, and here's how we're laying things out. Those type of interactions are so much different than a product that can go anywhere else online and purchase. So how do we make it personal, and how do we actually speak from the perspective of you, the shop owner, as a personality and not just a product? So keep that in mind as you think about those things. Be human, the simplest way to say it, and promote human. And then last, I will say that don't wait to the holiday season to work on your brand. I will say right now, the time of a lot of noise, a lot of people screaming for attention and wanting to be heard. This is a day in, day out thing that you live of how to promote, communicate your brand. This isn't hey, I'll sprinkle on top and hope that it does its job. It's not a magic bullet. Brand is something that you live out consistently. So with that, branding is not a tactic, but it is a way of making sure you have a lens to looking at who your customer is, the products that you bring in to support them, how you differentiate yourself in the marketplace. So I'm happy to talk about any of that stuff for a lot longer than this time allows, but I just wanted to share kind of those quick insights and hand it over to Lorianna.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm Lorianna Sprague again. Good morning, everyone. I work at TrackFive, and we just launched a digital marketing agency called Trusted. So today I'm talking about local SEO, and I think to build on what Ryan was just talking about, brand is so important because you can show up in the local search results on Google and be right next to a whole bunch of other restaurants or shops or people who provide the same service, and how do you differentiate yourself? And that's going to come in, one, how you've built your tribe and how much they love you, which shows up in your reviews. The pictures that you take that represent your brand because it communicates it visually. So those are some of the things that I'm going to talk about today. But I think the most important thing for anyone to do in terms of local SEO, if you haven't done it already, is to optimize for voice search. Because if you think about how many people are going to be running around with bags in their hands and a phone that they want to try to get directions or information for where can I go for this, for food, because I'm really busy and we're hungry in the middle of shopping, or I'm at home and I'm juggling children and I need to know where I can go that's a local toy store because I need to go buy toys for my kids, or whatever it is. People are communicating with voice search devices like Amazon Echoes and things like that more and more and more. There was a study that came out that showed 50% of all searches are made by voice in 2020, and as of 2021, I would assume that ratio is much higher. And when it comes to local searches, I think that the proportion is going to be even higher. So if you're not showing up well in local search by voice, then you should get on that. And you can do that before the holidays, yay. So that's not something that you needed to have planned ahead for. There are 4 main places that you need to go in order to show up on all of the right places when it comes to voice search. The first being Google and getting your Google My Business page. So get that in there. And when you claim your listing and you're optimizing across all 4 of these, you need to make sure that your name, your phone number, and your address are all the same, identical. Whether it's street or ST period, whether you use comma inc period at the end of your name or not, all of it needs to be exactly the same. It's called NAP. Name, address, phone number, and in local SEO, it's the number 1 rule. If you're inconsistent, it's hard for people to find you. It also sends inconsistent signals to the ranking algorithms for all of these local things. And if you're inconsistent, they don't trust your data, and you're less likely to be serviced at the top. So after Google My Business, you need to go to Apple Maps Connect so that you show up for any Siri voice searches. For Bing Places, you're going to go claim your Bing Places for any sort of Microsoft Cortana voice searches. And then last, claiming your Yelp business listing will allow you to show up in Amazon Alexa. And Yelp is also pulled in for photos and reviews on Apple Maps and Bing Places. So those are the top 4 places to go claim. Make sure they're all identical. Next up is when somebody does a voice search, whether it's for a restaurant or a toy store or a place that provides home decor, some of the first things they're going to see is your picture. I mean, people are drawn to the pictures before they're drawn to the names. So you can go in and you can change your photos on these things and show seasonally appropriate stuff. The holiday window decorating contest is a great idea to put up there. So after you've decorated your window, take a picture of that and put it up there. 1, it's going to help people find you more quickly when they're coming to shop because now your front window looks different. And 2, I don't know about you, but I spend a lot more money when people really pull in the holiday spirit in their stores, and I will go inside of them when I shouldn't. And I know a lot of people that are the same, so it's a thing. When you really get people's holiday cheer up, they're coming because they want to be a part of that. They really love the feeling. So you can do that in the photos that you have on all of these local listings. Also, products. So Google in particular allows you to add particular products. If you're a restaurant, it can be your dishes. If you happen to sell toys or gifts, you can put up products for those toys or gifts. This is helpful for a number of reasons. Now, people might be coming to shop locally, and you think, well, why would I want to put my product online if I'm trying to encourage people to come in my store? It's because they might say, and I just did this the other day for my daughter's birthday party, I wanted to know where to find Calico Critters dollhouse toys for her. And I said, where to buy Calico Critters near me. And there was a toy shop in Ephrata, of all places. Like, I'm searching in Millersville, and I'm expecting a place in Lancaster to show up. And it was a toy store up in Ephrata, and they had a reference on one of their images that said, we have Calico Critters. So when people are looking for a particular toy that they know their kid wants, and you have it, if you've got a picture up there or a product up there and you're sharing the brand name for that, you're going to be able to show up in local search results so that people can shop locally for the things that they want for their kids. So that's really huge. And if you're a restaurant, I would say don't put Instagram-y type photos of your food up there. Represent it as accurately as possible so that you don't set inappropriate expectations and have unhappy customers. People want to see exactly what they're going to get. In your descriptions for your dishes, your description for your restaurant, you want to list any kind of allergen stuff that you do. For the holidays, there's a lot of people that are going to be coming in from out of town. They're not necessarily familiar with all of the restaurants and the options that are available. And they're going to want to be able to quickly find, like, where can I find a place that is gluten-free or vegan or any of that stuff. And if you have it there, you can show up. And if you don't, you won't, and your competitors will. So it's good to make sure that you've got everything listed that might be important to the people that you want to attract so that you can show up in those searches. And then finally, reviews. Now, reviews are a little bit harder. You could do this now. You could get 20, 30, 100 reviews before the holiday season starts. That's the next thing that they're going to look at. So if they're looking for, I don't know, gift shops near me, and you're on a list with 15 other stores, they're going to look at your pictures and they're going to look at your reviews. If you don't have any reviews, they don't know if they can trust you. If you have poor reviews, then they don't trust you. But if you can show up and you've got a 4 something or better, then they're going to say, all right, this is worth looking into. They'll look at your reviews. So the more you've done the branding side of things and you've got a happy tribe of people that love you and want to promote you, the greater the likelihood that you can go and get positive reviews now that help boost your listings in local search results and also get you customers when they do generic searches for the things that you have to offer. And then on top of that, the voice search just allows you to show up when people look for who you are. The only caveat to that, and my hair salon's not here, their brand name is Transformation Salon, but they use a 4 in their name, and they will not come up. I try to voice search them. And there's a Transformation spelled correctly without the number 4 in the name, salon in Ephrata, and that's the one that Google attempts to drive me to every time I have tried to get directions. So if you happen to have a name that's got an odd character in it that isn't normal, when someone says your business, you're going to have difficulty with voice search. There's not an immediate answer to that, but you should know that that's the case because it will be a problem.
There is an immediate answer. Spell it right.
Well, when it's your legal brand name, that becomes more of a problem.
I guess that's just me being a grumpy old boomer.
I love it. All right, I'm going to pass this to Adam.
Speaks to branding, right? The 3 tips I have are going to relate to e-commerce. I'm going to put a couple caveats here, though. One, these are specifically for smaller businesses, so they won't apply as much to like an enterprise level business. The second thing is these are quick things you can do for this holiday season. So there are some things you can do as a long-term strategic approach, but given the timing of how close the holiday season is, I mean, it's upon us now, I want to give you some things you can do really quickly. So the first, let's talk about being in more places. If you take a marketing 101 class, they're going to tell you about the 4 Ps of marketing: product, price, promotion, and place. If you're a business major, you've probably heard those. Promotion gets all the love, right? Like how do we get more attention, more action? People don't talk about place. But if you're an e-commerce brand, building a new website, if you're trying to, grow your 2020 numbers. Building a new website's not a reality. Some of the longer term promotion options aren't a reality, but there are places where people are looking now. There is a business we work. I'm going to tell you. There's a quick pre-COVID and post-COVID story. There's a business we work with that was a small sign maker, and they were selling their signs locally, but they noticed on Etsy that this is pre-COVID. People were had all these wedding signs, right? Like these kind of scripty things that said like love, peace, and things like that. And people were buying them in droves in Etsy. And they were able to drive their e-commerce numbers up in 1 year by $170,000 just by pre-making some signs and putting them on Etsy. So they had an awareness of what people were looking for, and they found a new place. Etsy's out there. There are a ton of different marketplaces. Some others to think about. One would be social media, right? Like Kris talked about social shopping. And I just want to reiterate that point. It's really important. I actually sat down with a client last week, and it took us like 15 minutes to open a Facebook and Instagram store. We just registered it. We put a couple products up there. We connected it super quickly, and they're already getting sales right from Facebook, like Kris said with those speakers he bought. Another thing to consider is like your Google Merchant Center. Before COVID, we all know the shopping tab on Google. So if you Google sneakers, you can see your main Google tab, and there's the shopping tab. Before COVID, you had to pay to appear on that shopping tab. Google changed that in the middle of COVID, and you can get a Merchant Center account for free, and you can list your products and appear right there on Google. It's another place you can be. So when someone searches, sneakers or anything that you sell, you can appear right there. Now there is still a paid option, but a whole bunch of those listings are free listings too. So that's just another place to consider. Another person we worked with, they had a sourdough mixture. This was post-COVID, and I don't know if you guys noticed, but in the middle of COVID, everybody started making sourdough. And again, same thing on Etsy. They just put a sourdough starter on Etsy, and they sold tens of thousands of dollars just right there by being in a new place. So there are a lot of places out there. You can talk to your customers, see places they shop, but consider not just thinking about your website. If you're really trying to get sales in the next month or two, maybe try to find 3 or 4 places. Get on Facebook, look at Google Merchant Center, and maybe even look at a broader marketplace like Etsy. The second thing I want to talk about does actually relate to your website, and that's improving the conversion rate of your website. Like I said, it's very expensive to get more traffic to your website, very challenging. I think everybody here, we all have probably tips for how to increase conversion rates on your website. A good long-term one is just to have a good brand, which would take a long time. But if you're a couple quick things you can do on your website to increase your conversion rate. And let me back up for a minute. Just I think most of us know conversion rate, but I'll take 10 seconds just to explain it. That's the percentage of people that are coming to your website that actually convert and make a purchase. And the math behind it is pretty powerful. If you've got 1,000 people coming to your website, and 100 of them on average buy, which would be a fantastic conversion rate. You could do a lot of work and double those numbers and double your conversion rate to get 1,000 people, another 1,000 to get to 2,000. The other option would be just to get a higher percentage of them to actually make a purchase, so doubling your conversion rate. For a lot of us that haven't spent, if your business hasn't spent time on conversion rate, it's probably hovering around the 1% to 2% numbers. So that's your total revenue on your e-commerce stores is 1% to 2% of purchases of everyone who arrives. You can typically get those numbers you actually can usually realistically double with some intensive conversion optimization. So by going from just 1% to 2%, you essentially double your revenue on your website. Some quick tips for that, some things to be thinking about. One would be your product page. So spend a lot of time looking at your product page. Some new things this year that we've seen in studies that do really well, adding a quick video to your product page. So demonstrate your product one video, and you can use a smartphone. If you can get a video production company, absolutely do it. But in a pinch, you could just record a nice smartphone video or something like that. Get reviews on your product page. We talked about the importance for reviews in local. They're also really essential. So get some customers to leave some feedback on that product page, and just add longer, deeper descriptions. This is one where if you're a small business trying to compete with the Amazons of the world or bigger companies, take a look at the product pages on Amazon. Amazon spends millions and millions of dollars optimizing those product pages. So pay close attention to where they have their buy buttons, how long the explanations are. And I'd say especially look at the Amazon products. So not just the listings, but look at the Kindle landing page or the Alexa landing page. Those are very long landing pages. They have lots of images, beautiful imagery. They've got descriptions, all the different ways the product can change your life, etc. Look at Apple landing pages, the iPhone landing pages. Again, long landing pages with lots of really good content. So look at those, use those as inspiration. Pick your top 3 or 4 products and just give your landing page some love, your product pages some love. The other thing is the checkout process. I'm amazed at how many e-commerce business owners have never actually checked out, gone through the checkout process of their own website. So go do that. Go through the checkout process and just make sure it's really easy. I've got a friend who has an e-commerce store. I don't work with him directly, but I went to reserve some time for their selling, and I was amazed at how hard it was. I had to jump through so many hoops, especially with my phone. I had to jump through a ton of hoops. It was actually kind of hard to find the right buttons. I told him, like, you got to change this. You know, he had actually never gone through his own checkout process. So another way you can lose, you know, can be dropping your conversion rate is if it's overly complicated, if there are hurdles in your checkout process, things like that. The last tip, and I'll keep it pretty quick, is just make friends with your customers. This goes what Kris said about influencer marketing. There's a hobbyist brand we work with who invented a new item for the hobby they work in. I don't want to give too many details, so I want to give the specific number. So anyway, they invented this kind of small acrylic product, and within 1 year, they sold $180,000 of that product. And all of that came from is connecting with their community. They connected with other people in this hobby, and just people who had purchased the product or even hadn't purchased the product, and just reached out to them and said, hey, would you give this a shot? Or when they saw people had purchased it, they just asked them, hey, what'd you think of it? Did you like it? Because these are likable people that spent time investing in relationships with their customers went on to create YouTube videos about the product, which then ranked. They created, they write blog posts about the product. And, they just really, and they're dominating the space. And literally, $180,000 of fairly profitable revenue in 1 year was accrued just by being friendly and just making relationships. So I totally agree with Kris's point about influencer marketing, but I'd say, like Kris said, it doesn't have to be scary. It's just about, connecting with the people who, have bought your product or might buy your product, and just starting basic conversations with them. By being a little bit human, like Ryan encourages us to do, you can see real gains in your revenue. What's next?
Kathleen.
Kathleen.
Kathleen, you get that?
Does anyone